Thanks for tuning in to Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Min for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, that's G-R-A-N, group, at edinarealty.com, or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. On this episode, Dan recaps the Twins' 3-game series against the Kansas City Royals. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Min for the Win. I am Dan Thompson, and with me is nobody else. It's just me out here. David is sick. Hoges is adventuring, I think, in California. We haven't heard from him in days, but we're pretty sure he's okay. And so here I am. The show must go on, and I had to be the one to talk about this series with the Royals. The Twins get swept. They have dropped back just a little bit farther in the standings. There's still somehow a playoff team right now, but the Mariners only 3.5 games back from them. I'm worried, and I think David was worried too. We had some frantic texting Saturday night, just expressing that we don't think this team's going to make the playoffs anymore. They're certainly not playing like it. After the game here, Game 3, Rocco Baldelli's only line, apparently to the media, was, quote, "That was an unprofessional series of baseball we played, and that's all I've got for you." And then he left. And then he had a team meeting, and who knows what goes on in those team meetings. So, yeah, we're worried. We're worried. And the schedule here, should keep the Twins afloat. They play the Angels, the Reds, then the Guardians for 4, the Red Sox, the Marlins, the Orioles. These are very, very winnable series for a team that can play competent baseball. We're just not sure right now that the Twins can actually do that. A couple other notes, at least the Vikings won, so I suppose Minnesota fans, if you're one of those and not one of those, mixed fans like Hoges is with being a Packers fan, it was a good day for you in that way. But yes, I think this is episode something like 252. This is our first solo show, so bear with me here as I try to pretend to assume what David might say in some situations and maybe have kind of some conversations with myself. One thing that David had noted is that we were using apparently one of our favorite sounders wrong. I'm going to play it for you.
It's the cows.
So apparently, not only is Joe Mauer, this spokesman for Kemp's, I don't know if he's still doing that, but he was, but apparently Matt Wallner grew up on a dairy farm. And so maybe instead of using, the sounder about, having adamantium in his body.
We're about to begin bonding adamantium to weapon exoskeleton.
The Wolverine-related one. Maybe we should have been using that for the milk. There's so many here. We can also use this one for Wallner, since he's from Minnesota. Anyway, Matt Wallner didn't have a great series. Nobody seemingly had a great series for the Twins. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into it.
Series recap.
Game 1, the Twins lose this one 5-0, the most resounding defeat of all of the defeats here. The Twins can muster just 4 hits. The Royals have 10. The Royals go, they weren't great, 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position, but the Twins were 0 for 1. Their one big hit was a double by Austin Martin, but they left 4 on base. Zebby Matthews was okay, actually, in this. 5 innings, 9 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 Ks, and a home run. But I would argue right now he's really not your ace. He's not your 2, your 3, or your 4. He's your 5. And if he's going to at least give you 5 innings, this was when I was okay with them losing, I guess, from that perspective. There were a couple plays to note. So in the bottom of the second, a great play by Carlos Santana to rob a hit from Runter Renfroe. And the bottom of the third, Kyle Isbell walks Tommy Pham, who the Twins didn't feel like it was worth claiming, hits an RBI double to left field to score Isbell. He's fast. A lot of Royals players are fast, and so it's 1-0. Top of the fourth, the Twins, maybe have a little bit of a chance here. Kyle Farmer singles, Austin Martin hits a double to left, and Tommy Watkins, who's going to come up a few times here, he just watched the Royals on basically the same play score Kyle Isbell, and so apparently he's trying to prove that the Twins' Kyle is as good as the Royals' Kyle. So he sends Farmer. He's thrown out by 5 feet, which by Tommy Watkins standards really isn't that bad. But keep in mind that our Kyle Farmer, is 34 and over 200 pounds. Now, David put that note in before he came down sick, so I don't know if that's exactly true, but their Kyle is 27 and weighs 190. Now, there's 2 outs. It could have been a worse send. I get it, and with the way the Twins were playing, maybe you try to get runs any way you can. But nevertheless, that's Tommy Watkins, foible number 1 here. Bottom of the fourth, Michael Massey hits a solo home run, so the Royals lead 2-0. Bottom of fifth, Zebby gets into trouble, limits the damage. The Royals do score 2 on singles. And then the bottom of the eighth, they add another one on a single. A wild pitch advancement, a ground out, a sac fly, a good old-fashioned, Twins Piranhas kind of, run that the Twins aren't getting. And apparently the Twins had no interest in winning this game. Then we move to game 2. So the Twins actually score in this one. The top of the third, the Twins score with 3 hits to right field. Julian doubles. Miranda triples. Wallner doubles. And maybe it was this triple by Miranda that gave Tommy, a false sense of how fast Jose Miranda could be in these situations. And we'll talk about that in game 3. So the Twins are up 2-0. And then Robbie Grossman. So this former Twin is back for the 3rd different team this year to play the Twins. He's played for the White Sox, the Rangers, and the Royals. And he's played against the Twins in all of them. Now, he wasn't a huge factor in this, but I'm just annoyed that Robbie Grossman keeps popping up. Not much happens in the middle innings here. Now, we will talk a lot here because Bailey Ober was fantastic. And we're going to talk about him. 7 innings, just 1 hit, no walks, 7 strikeouts. Just a fantastic start. And only 83 pitches, which is kind of the crux of it. A couple moments in the top of the 7th and the 8th I'm going to talk about in the rewind here. But the crucial moment is the bottom of the 8th. Duran comes in, which is curious in and of itself. He does get an out, but then allows a single, then walks Grossman. Then Isbell, of course, this is all the bottom of the Royals lineup, hits an RBI single. Jax comes in. There's a grounder to Lee at shortstop, and he tries to make the throw to first. But Farmer, who's come into this game because Carlos Santana is sick and couldn't continue in the game. He didn't even play in game 3 either. Farmer can't handle it. Now, the irony here, of course, is that the Twins do have another first baseman on this team, but it's Miranda, and he's DHing. And you could argue the Twins were probably better off just pulling the DH at that point and having a more capable first baseman here. But they don't. And so that mistake leads to another Royals run. And it's a tie game, right? So it's 2-2 now. Runners at the corners for Bobby Witt Jr. And, of course, in this moment, Bobby Witt Jr. comes through. He gets a hit. It's 3-2. Salvador Perez lines out to center field. MJ Melendez singles, and that scores another. And Witt is out at home to mercifully end the inning. And the Twins don't do anything in the top of the 9th. And so they lose 4-2. And then we get to game 3. This one does start a little bit promisingly. Eddie Julian is out. Well, that was kind of a usual thing, but it is interesting to see him hitting at the top of the lineup. And I think that speaks to the fact that the Twins obviously have some faith that he's turned it around, or maybe just Willie Castro's been that bad. I think it's maybe a little bit of both. Miranda singles. Larnach doubles on a beautiful double to the gap. And it would seem as if there was enough time on this play for Miranda to come all the way around. But he's tired. And you can see it on the replay if you watch it. He's coming towards third. And this would be a moment where Tommy's got to say, hey, there's 1 out. We could have runners at second and third with the heart of the lineup, as much as there's a heart in this lineup right now coming up. But Watkins sends Jose Miranda, and he's out at the plate. Yeah, probably another 5-footer, not a 10-footer, I would say. But he's out. Wallner walks, so the Twins do get a couple guys on again for Royce. But Royce, the mighty Casey here of this team, strikes out swinging, and so there we go. And that was pretty much all of the Twins' threat of the whole game. They had 2 more at-bats with runners in scoring position. The rest of the game finished 0-for-3 in that situation. The Royals, for their part, really only had 1 threat, and it was in the bottom of the 5th. They loaded the bases with no outs. Now, it's ironic because the Royals were trying with first and second to get a bunt down and then really just kind of advance the runners over. And Michael Garcia is up. He tries to bunt a couple times, but he settles for a ground ball to Julian that he can't handle, and so the bases are loaded. Garrett Hampson comes up. He's out on a sac fly to left, but everybody advances. Tommy Pham walks, and that's the end of the day for Simeon Woods Richardson, who I think actually he pitched okay, all things considered. But Cole Sands replaces him. He strikes out Bobby Witt Jr. in with the bases loaded. And then Salvador Perez singles on a ground ball to third. That's just a dribbler up the line. And I don't know how this ball didn't go foul once it left the grass. It took a weird, almost like the loogie in Seinfeld. It takes, veered left and then suddenly turned back right, stayed fair. And so everybody's safe. Another run scores. But then Michael Massey flies out to center. And from there, really, the Twins' bullpen is okay, right? Alcala comes in. Well, I should say Sands finishes the next inning as well. Alcala comes in. Blewett comes in and doesn't blow it. And so they're still there. The Twins do have a little bit of a threat in the 9th inning. Vasquez gets on, but then they're really unable to do anything else. After that, Vasquez was 3 for 3 in this game, actually. He was one of just 3 Twins who didn't strike out. Willie Castro didn't strike out, and neither did Jose Miranda. And so there you go. So the Twins have lost this series. Let me pull up the standings here. And at this point, they are 5 games back from the Guardians. The Twins are 76 and 67. The Royals are now 2.5 back from the Guardians and 2.5 ahead of the Twins at 79 and 65. And then looking at the wild card standings, the Tigers, there they are, 3.5 back at 73 and 71. The Mariners are right there, 73 and 71. The Red Sox are 4 back, 72 and 71. If you are in Detroit, Seattle, or Boston, you must not be able to believe what the Twins have done. They've lost 14 of their last 20, and they look ill-equipped to win a playoff series, let alone get to them right now. Something came through my X feed, and it was reminding me of, I think it was 2009 when the Twins were trailing the Tigers by something like 7 games in September. And David, I'm sure you'd make me cry foul or hypocrite or something like that. But, the Tigers, they're there. I don't want to buy David that trip to Germany. Now, maybe we are looking at their finest hour, and maybe they're going to be able to come back and mount, and I'm talking about the Twins now, and mount, a good finish to the season. And it's possible the schedule sets up for them to do that. They have to figure out a way to hit baseballs harder and score some runs. You can't just score 2 runs against one of your rivals and win. And it's sad, really, because the Royals only scored 9 runs and they won all 3 of these games. So I think with that, we'll go to another rather deflating segment of Puckett's Picks Winner.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks Winner.
This may have been the new low for the season here. So the listeners took Royce Lewis, who had -4. He's going to come up later. David took Santana, who played a game and a half and had 0 points. Hoges took Wallner, who did hit a couple baseballs hard, but only had the 1 point. And I took Jose Miranda, who had 2 points. And not only was that enough to win, but I scoured this lineup, and that was actually the high for the Twins' whole roster. So I get the bonus point as well. Now, David is probably very happy about this because he still has a commanding lead. He has 22.5 points. Hoges has 16. The listeners have 10. I'm right there with 9.5. Hopefully going to catch the listeners. But the thing is, now Hoges, with only 6 series left, needs to actually win some bonus points as well here to be able to catch David. You never say never here, but I feel like we're saying that about the wild card race here. I guess, I'd much rather Hoges come back than any of those other teams. But there we are. So we're going to go ahead and move forward here to Beast versus Bench.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
I think it's got to be Bailey Ober. I don't think there's any other way around it. 7 innings, 1 hit. As I said before, no walk, 7 strikeouts. Very different than his first start of the season, which was an explosively bad one against the Royals. He looked just excellent. He looks every bit as good as Pablo Lopez. This is a team with actually some decent starting pitching right now. I mean, David Festa has actually looked okay. SWR, it seems like he's slowing down, and Zebby Matthews, isn't quite ready. I mean, we wouldn't normally see him if Joe Ryan was healthy, but I don't even know if a healthy Joe Ryan would have mattered that much right now for this team. Maybe it's a win or 2 more, and I guess that's probably enough to make a difference right now, obviously, in the standings. But that's not what they're missing right now. They're missing Buxton. They're missing Correa, guys who may or may not come back. I think they will come back at some point here, but they're not back yet. The Twins tend to give more updates on injuries when they come home, and so they are going to be home this week. They even get a day off at home, I think on Thursday after this Angels series. So we'll see. As for my bench, I had to go with Royce Lewis.
You were the chosen one!
Not good. Royce, 0 for 10, 5 strikeouts. I don't even know if he's pressing. I don't even really think that he's hurt. I think that he's just missing his guys, right? This was a trio that's been touted with Correa and with Buxton. And, without his trio, he's just a solo act, out on tour with this Twins team, and it's just not going well. There's no support with him. And at times you have Matt Wallner. I dare say they even miss Max Kepler right now for his defense. Chris Atterbury was talking about on the radio today in this 3rd game that this is just not a good defensive team right now. And they're a great defensive team if you've got Correa and Buxton, who are 2 of the best in baseball, and Kepler, who plays an above-average right field. But right now, with everybody else out there, I mean, for goodness sake, the Royals tagged up everybody in a bases-loaded play when it was hit to Larnach in the left. And it's like they knew, that there's no way Larnach can even get the ball to second in time to get a guy there. So they're struggling defensively. They're struggling on the bats. Teams don't have to be that afraid of Royce Lewis. Now, hopefully he'll come up with some big hits here in this Angels series, and other guys can maybe pick him up. But the bottom line is they just don't have the bats right now. They don't have the depth without the 2 big bats. And that's all I got to say about that. I'm going to move on here to Rocco's Rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
I'm not a guy that likes all caps, but I wrote in here, in all caps, Rocco, why did you pull Bailey Ober? What were you thinking in game 2 here? So the situation is that the Twins are up 2-0, and Bailey Ober could be on to face the bottom of the lineup in the bottom of the 8th here. He's cruised. Again, 1 hit, no walks, looking better than ever, looking like his children have been treating him like a king for, the week, right, leading up to this. Like, Daddy, here, let me rub your feet. Daddy, let me get you a snack. What do you need, right? But that's not how Rocco went here. Rocco pulled him, and oddly, he brought in Duran, and I'm trying to think through what the logic was here. Was it to have Duran face the bottom and then have Griffin Jacks face Bobby Witt Jr.? Maybe somebody found the splits. Maybe Jacks has really good splits against Bobby Witt Jr. and Duran doesn't. I don't understand the calculation here. We just talked about this last episode, that Duran is great in the 9th, but he hasn't been great in other situations. So that was really curious. Also, earlier in that game, Rocco, in the top of the 7th, pinching in Willie Castro for Eddie Julian. Even though Eddie Julian is 2 for 3, I get the matchups, but Castro struck out. I don't know why you're getting cute there. And top of the 8th, this was just kind of funny. Daniel Lynch, the 4th, he's a left-handed reliever for the Royals. He comes in, and Rocco lets Larnach bat. Now, Larnach reaches on an error that, he hit back to the pitcher, and the pitcher just overthrew it. Salvador Perez just couldn't quite go up and get it.
I'm not dead.
And then a couple batters later, Wallner strikes out. But I don't understand why Rocco's letting them hit. I think it's fine. But the irony, of course, is that if you're ever going to not have these guys face a lefty, it's Lynch. In 28 at-bats coming into this game, just 2 hits has he given up in that situation. 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. So Rocco just not reading, I don't know, just some odd situations here, some odd choices late in this baseball game. He definitely overmanaged the end of this. I think that you leave Bailey Ober in there. If he gets into trouble, you have somebody warming up. But the bottom line is you needed to have this game, because then you're burning your big arms, the 2 arms you really trust, for game 3. You're not putting your guys in the best position to win. All right, let's go in here to the Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
What I just talked about really was the moment of the series in so many ways, but if I had to pick a second one, it's going to be the first inning of game 3. You get a guy on. You have a lovely hit. You're getting to Michael Wacha, who is not really hittable usually the first time through the lineup. And it's just another wasted opportunity, a chance that, especially in retrospect, with the way that your pitching staff held together and only gave up the 2 runs, just how different that could be if you're just a little bit more cautious. And I'm sorry, I can see this differently if, let's say, because there's 1 out, and let's say you're facing the choice of second and third, 1 out with the bottom of your lineup coming up. And maybe, but even then, surely you can try to manufacture that run, or you could just maybe have a big inning against the guy that you're obviously hitting hard. And they were able to continue to hit him hard decently that first time through, but just not after that. And so there's just not enough punch right now in this lineup. And I thought the game 3 really showed that.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's musings.
David and I were both thinking about this question, and I was trying to phrase some kind of a postseason question. I landed on this. Do we even care at this point if they miss the postseason? I'm deflated right now about this baseball team. And maybe it was a combination of the fact that Saturday night I was covering a football game where a team from Iowa, Drake University, came out to Eastern Washington and came back and beat them in thrilling fashion. And I'm watching this game right in front of me unfold, and all of these Red fans being, super let down. And I'm about to talk to some players and coaches who are super let down about this. And the Twins' loss was kind of piling into that. But I think that I do want this team to make the playoffs, because you just never know what can happen in the playoffs. And if they can get reinforcements back, if Correa can come back, if Buxton can come back, if Kepler can come back, then I think they do have a chance to win a series. I don't care if it's maybe going to be in Houston or New York. In fact, if anything, I like that, because then nobody's going to assume that they're going to win that series anyway. And so you figure you have nothing to lose in that situation. And it's not like other sports where you want to tank for better draft positioning. Like, that's not going to help you. But I wonder what the fan base would do to this team if it didn't make the playoffs. Fans don't make decisions. The poll ads do. I like Rocco. I still think Rocco should be back managing this team. I think it gets overblown. Yes, he had a bad series here, but really a bad game. I don't know what he's supposed to do right now. We can talk about fundamentals of this team and how they haven't been good. That's not just on Rocco. That's an organizational thing. And also, you take away the two best defensive players on any team, the top three maybe, who is going to be good? And they also were playing without Carlos Santana here in some key moments. That game 2 might go very differently if Carlos Santana is there at first base and is able to make that play and keep the damage minimal, and maybe the Twins are able to wiggle out and score another run in the 9th to take the lead. So it's hard to put all this on Rocco. I think people are all very, very low on this team, but I think we need to just recalibrate expectations and say, all right, now there's 6 series left. The Twins have a 3.5 game lead in the wild card. They're home a good deal here, right? They're home 4 of these last 6 series. The 2 on the road are some actually pretty important ones, the Guardians and the Red Sox. I don't think they're going to catch the Guardians. Maybe, I guess, if they can sweep the Guardians, but I don't see them being equipped to do that. The Red Sox are going to need that series. You can really end the Red Sox postseason hopes by beating them, but we thought the Red Sox hopes were dead, a month ago, and now here they are. So there is a lot of baseball left, and it could be exciting, I think, if not for the fact that this has been such a letdown lately to see how the Twins have played. All right, I'm going to move forward here to the series grades.
Series grades.
I could go through the whole thing, but it's just going to be an F anyway, right? I mean, advance retreat was terrible. Well-played baseball was not great. They didn't play great in the field. They didn't hit well. They did pitch pretty well, except for the key moments where they needed to pitch better in the bottom of the 8th of game 2. And so it's going to be an F. A lot of low grades lately. I think maybe we grade them too harshly at times. Maybe we were grading them too harshly earlier when they were still winning series and they were still looking good. And thank goodness for all those wins early, that they banked all those when they were just winning 2 out of 3. Because now they're getting swept and they're dropping lower and lower and they're giving hopes to the teams behind them. Let's look around the league now. Herbie's headlines.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
2 quick things. So Shohei Ohtani, we love to talk about Shohei on this podcast. He's at 46 home runs and 46 stolen bases and is seemingly about to inaugurate the 50-50 club. There's never been a player with 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases. It's amazing what we're watching here with him and with my other guy.
All rise for Dan's Judge Love.
Aaron Judge is slowing down a little bit on his pace. He's got 51 home runs. I don't think he's going to be able to get to 60. It would obviously take quite the run here. But look at these two. We've got Ohtani. We've got Judge. This is an incredible time for star power, I think. I would almost even put Bobby Witt Jr. up there he's not to the level of those guys yet. But there are some great players in baseball right now. And as much as I don't want to see a Dodgers-Yankees World Series, if there's ever a year to have one, how interesting. The only letdown in that, I suppose, there'd be a lot of letdowns in that from a Midwestern fan's perspective, but is that we wouldn't see Ohtani pitch to Judge. I think that in a World Series would be a pretty memorable moment. And then so that's kind of looking around that way. But then also this came across my feed as well. Max Scherzer, who's been rehabbing to get back to the season with the Rangers, which good on him. He's 40 years old. He's got some contractual interest in still, coming back for this season. But he loses a perfect game on purpose in the minors. Now, he was only through 11 batters, but he intentionally walks the next guy. And apparently, you can read more about this. He was wanting to face righties and not lefties. He wanted to work out something because, Max Scherzer doesn't need to build his confidence going to AAA. He's there to do something and to work on something. I don't even know if he knew that that's what he was doing. He was so in the zone. But to be that guy who got intentionally walked by Max Scherzer, you've got to tell that story growing up, that Max Scherzer was afraid to face you with nobody on base. I mean, this is the Aaron Judge treatment for some AAA player, getting that from Max Scherzer. And I applaud Scherzer for coming back, too. I think it's great when guys, you want to be back and play for their team, even when your team is the Rangers. And they're 6.5 back. I think even when the Twins are playing, they'd have to crawl past 5 other teams plus the Twins to get into that wild card. So I don't think that they're a threat there. But yeah, so that's looking around the league. We should just mention a couple of other things. The Yankees right now currently lead the East, but they're jostling with the Orioles. So right now the Orioles are that 4 seed. I don't have the bracket up, to look at the playoffs, but I can put this together pretty well. The Guardians are the 2 seed right now at 81 and 62. The Astros are that 3 at 77 and 65. They are still 5 games ahead of the Mariners in the West. So you got to think the Mariners are playing for that wild card spot too, but they weren't not that long ago. They were just really hoping to win that division. And then it's Orioles, Royals, and Twins in the wild card. On the NL side, Dodgers, Phillies, Brewers are your top 3 seeds and the division leaders. And then the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and then the Braves and Mets are tied for that last wild card. It's really those 4 teams. The Cubs are 5 back. The Cardinals are 6 back. But the Mets have played really well. They've won 9 out of 10. So I love the end of the year here when you got these wild card chases. It's fun to watch. It's good for those Midwestern Twins fans to be able to turn on some games on the West Coast, see some Padres games and some Diamondbacks games. All right, let's move forward here. Let's make some Puckett's picks for the Angels series.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Puckett's Picks.
Listeners are going to they're going to change it up a little bit.
I am not throwing away my shot.
They're going to go with Jose Miranda. David is next. He was able to get a pick to me via text, even though he's sick. He picked Brooks Lee. Hoges has not picked. He's not offered anything because, again, we don't know where Hoges is. But I have every interest to keep this interesting. And what we've learned is that whenever the listeners go away from Lewis, it's a mistake. So I think Hoges is going to pick Lewis because he's just going to bank on that turnaround. That's the kind of turnaround Hoges needs and the Twins need too. So it seems like an apt time for Lewis. I think I need to go back to my guy, of course, my birthday buddy, Matt Wallner.
Kiss the cows.
And I love that I can use that sounder for him now. And that's all I've got. So thank you for listening through here. I wish David better health, and hopefully he can rejoin me on Wednesday for the Angels series recap. I still think that maybe he was just so upset that the Twins got swept by the Royals that he wasn't able to listen. But with that, I'm gonna go ahead and send us out. Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win. You can find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your favorite platform so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kuvas and Dan Thompson, 2 avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.